to start in a seated position to start the practice. It's a very low practice, low to the ground, very calming practice tonight, so welcome. So we're just going to take a moment to extend the crown, lift the spine gently, close the eyes gently and soften. And then just drop your shoulders, allow them to relax. Allowing the sit bones to just gently connect with the mat. And then start to become conscious of the breath. And that very gentle inhale and exhale. A reminder in Yin that we start to match the breath very gently in its length. So maybe start connecting, extending the exhale. And if you feel your muscles tightening during any of the practice, take your awareness back to that breathing. And then we're going to come into our first pose in a moment. And I'm just going to give you a wee reminder, if you're prone to any tingling in the arms when you raise your hands above the head, then just modify as I suggest in the poses. And we have got options as well to use as many props as possible. So I'm going to come forwards and I'm going to come into melting heart pose, or it's got many names, puppy dog, Anahatasana. And here you might just want a blanket for the forehead. You can adjust this by bringing blocks as well down to the hands. And you can also use cushions underneath the chest if that helps. If you're prone to that tingling in the arms, then instead of extending both arms, bring one back and then soften a little bit. So we're just going to walk the knees back so the hips are underneath, and I'm not actually going to use a cushion there. I'm actually going to prop the blanket under my knees. And I'm going to use the blocks just to give me a little bit of height here, opening the shoulders, but you're very welcome just to come down to the mat. And just, if you wish, just to protect the shoulders a little, bring the arm across. So take a moment to get comfy. And then start to just drop gently into the pose. And the pose is a bit like a marinade. So we have to be there a little longer for it to work. But if you're coming to that point where it's just coming a little uncomfortable, or you can feel too much of a deep stretch, ease out. That's working towards that edge. We just need to be a wee bit mindful of that. So coming into this wee pose here. And then just think about your breathing. If you're feeling flexible, you can bring the chin towards the mat or the forehead and allow the heart to melt. Keep that breath gentle and soft. Toes can be tucked under. And this pose is a very gentle back bend. But any tingling, either move your hands further apart or even rest your forehead on your forearms. And then very gently we're going to move to a wide child's pose. So if you've got that blanket or a cushion, you can pop that behind the knees if you wish, behind the back of the ankles if that helps. And then draw yourself down. Again, gentle on the arms, so you can always bring the arms across the mat and rest your forehead on the arms. If wide child's pose is not your thing, then just come into a very traditional Balasana. Breathing into the sides of the body with the inhale and the exhale, filling the lungs, expanding the chest, and then fully exhaling. And allow yourself to sink into this pose. Taking a bigger breath, a deeper inhale and exhale. Maybe exhaling out through the mouth. We're going to move gently to butterfly, lifting and stretching through the body as we gently move. And you can keep the pelvis just gently supported in butterfly. Now, I'm not going to use my blanket for this, I'm just going to use the cushion. And I'm going to walk my feet just slightly away from me. Now I have got the option here to roll forward, but if you're suffering from sciatica, that's not a good thing to do. So keep upright, or if it's not so bad, you can move the feet gently away from you and give yourself a little bit more space. You can use the blocks to gently prop your thighs, which is quite nice actually. And the closer your feet are towards you, the harder it's going to be to roll and round the spine. So gently adjust yourself. Lengthen through the spine as we inhale. And it may be you stay here. And if not, you might choose to roll gently forwards, maybe extending the palms, palms facing up, maybe gently resting the head in the hands. Wherever you are, make sure you're relaxed enough and supported enough to be able to kind of let the body go heavy. And find that place of comfort where you can just allow the pose to do its work. Remembering that Goldilocks analogy, finding the right pose for you. And be aware in Yin Yoga of the sensations of the body, how a pose is feeling. And you can always adjust a pose if you need. And start to just think about the breath and the length of your breath. Can you count to 4 on the inhale and 4 on the exhale? And then starting to move. We're going to come all the way down to the mat, really slowly into a nice side stretch. So you can keep a little blanket for the pillow if you wish, for the back of your head. You don't need blocks just yet, but keep them handy because we're going to come to a supported bridge after this. So we're going to come all the way down to the mat and stretch the legs long. Just allow you to walk the heels, gently arching. Even maybe bring knees into the chest just to take a moment of movement here. Might even be quite nice just to gently round and circle the knees, or rock just gently side to side. Before taking a moment in constructive rest pose. And really allow the soles of the feet to connect with the mat, the palms of the hands, and allow that spine to stretch out long. Take a big inhale and an exhale. And we're going to stretch the legs long again on the mat. We're going to walk them over to one side of the mat, to one corner. Now you can keep the hands on the belly, or you can draw the hands and kind of, as we do in dangling pose, the hands to the elbows, and draw your top body across if that's comfy. Beware of the tingling arms. You can even stretch the arms out, or even one arm out. So find a place where you're comfy. Now, to deepen this pose, we can also cross our ankles. Some people find it comfy crossing the outside foot over first. Some people find it the opposite. Again, a bit like Goldilocks. Find what's comfy for you. And if you feel that hip rising on the inside of the mat, you can actually pop just a cushion or a little weight. Sandbags are quite nice to use in Yin. Wherever you are, finding something that's comfy, that you're not feeling that tingly discomfort. Somewhere you can rest for a minute or two. And in this particular pose, you might find that your arms actually come down partway through the pose, and that's perfectly fine. And remember, we have a tendency in Yin to go inward and close our eyes, and that's absolutely fine, but just for a moment, maybe just look from a different angle. So I've just looked up that corner of the room, but the light's catching. I've just taken my gaze outwards. A different perspective. And if it's too much with the head, make sure the head is just gently supported and is maybe up, looking towards the ceiling. And it's just the shoulders that had shifted across. And we're gently going to find the other side in this pose. So we don't hold this quite as long as the other poses. And again, shifting the body across to the top side of the mat, the opposite side. Maybe the hands are just gently placed on the pelvis, or stretch out for a bit. Enjoy the stretch. And again, it's like Goldilocks and the Three Bears. If this pose is just not for you and it's aggravating something, come back to that constructive rest pose, that central, very well aligned pose. And don't forget the breath, that gentle inhale and exhale. Before we gently move back to center, and we draw ourselves back, knees bent, feet on the mat. And we're going to take one knee in, stretch the other leg out long, gently hugging the knee to the body, maybe circling the ankle. Moving the other knee into the body, extending the other leg long. And again, maybe circling the ankle, a little bit of yoga here for the ankle. one way and the other. And then both knees into the body. Bringing the feet back down to the mat to constructive rest pose. I'm going to take a reclined butterfly here just for a moment. Just allow the hips just to gently open. You can always use a block just to support the thighs if you're just protecting the hips a little. An opportunity to take a really big inhale and exhale, pushing the air right down into the base of the lungs. Waking up that diaphragm. We're gently going to bring the knees together and we're going to come to a supported bridge. So I'm going to move my blanket away and I'm going to grab a block. On this supported bridge, I'm going to just gently lift the hips up as I normally would in bridge and place that block just under the base of the spine. Just find that place that suits you. We're going to take a moment here, allowing ourselves to settle, and it's like the back should be fairly free. I should be able to move my shoulders and just let them be supported by the mat. And we can extend this pose. So you might be just comfy in this little supported bridge here. Or we can go deeper into this pose. And we can gently allow the feet to come forwards. So the knees now are out rather than towards the ceiling. Stretched legs. Now, this is a bit like Marmite as well. Might not be for you. This is a really nice chest opener. Opening the front of the body. Stretching out the lower back. Again, you modify the pose to suit your comfort level. And that might change from day to day. In bridge, you can also bring the arms if you're not suffering from any tingly shoulders. You can actually bring the arms above as well. And really stretch this whole pose into quite a juicy yin pose, I think you could call it. A pose for the whole body. Again, you can always bend one arm across the way. You need to protect one of the shoulders. And we've still got space between the chin and the chest. This is one of the poses that I actually could stay in for a really long time, but you might not be the same. So we're going to move gently out of it. But when we move gently out of this pose, we need to be very, very mindful. Such a stretchy in pose that we just need to be very slow in moving moving the feet back up to supported bridge. And then allowing ourselves to lift the hips, stretching into normal bridge, moving that block, and then drawing the spine all the way down to the mat in constructive rest. And we're going to allow that spine to settle. And then bring the knees gently into the body, knees to chest. And just gently hug the knees. Don't need to bring movement if you don't want to. And then even peel the nose towards the knees. Little stretch here. And then all the way back down to the mat. We're going to come into a supine twist. So full supine twist, so come to constructive rest, and then you can walk your feet to one side, stacking the feet, stacking the knees, and allowing yourself to drop the knees. Now a pillow between the knees can be added into this as a yin pose. That might feel quite nice. Arms can stabilize. Try and keep the shoulders both in contact with the mat. And you can also prop the head up slightly if you wish on a low blanket. So lots and lots of choices. It's wherever you're comfy. And you can breathe into this twist as well. Maybe even extending the gaze in the opposite direction to the knees. We're just taking a moment this evening to reset. Very slow, nice, yummy introduction back into August yoga. And then very gently, we're going to move back to center. Bring ourselves back to that central position. Allow the back just to settle a little. And then move ourselves across to the other side. Coming into a supine twist on the other side. Cushions, blankets at the ready. Breathing into this. And again, maybe seeing the room from a different perspective. That awareness of the natural beauty around us, taking a moment. And then bring yourself all the way back to constructive rest and stretch the legs out long. Arms gently by the side. And take a moment in Shavasana. Doesn't need to be at the end of a practice. If there were 2 yin poses that you could do if you were short of time, butterfly and Shavasana. And then we're going to gently roll onto our side and bring ourselves back up to seated. And from seated, we're just going to adjust ourselves so that we can come into deer pose. So I'm going to bring the blanket back under the hips. Take a moment just gently to come back to that grounding, the relaxed shoulders, the extended crown of the head. We're going to come to seated deer. So I'm going to take my leg behind me and allow myself just a little stretch. You can go deep into this, you don't have to. You can keep this upright, or you can take it into a side stretch. Now here is where you might want a lovely pillow, and you can either take this to the side, again, lots and lots of variations here, or you can take this in front of you. So it's really what's comfy for you. And I'm keeping this back leg just in line with my hip, and just finding a little place where I'm comfy. In fact, I'm actually comfy, just gently to the side. You can even, if you wish, rest the forearms on a pillow and allow the forehead to come back down to the hands. With a soft breath. And just remembering that if we feel any muscles beginning to tense, we move our awareness back to that breath. And if you feel any tingling sensations, then gently ease out of the pose. You can bring knees closer to you, soften the pose. Before we gently move to the other side. So gently coming out, coming back to center. And then finding that pose on the other side, allowing the leg to come back. Finding the cushion, the placement. And then allowing yourself to perhaps come back to the forearms, keep this pose upright if you wish, wherever you are. Enjoy. Allowing yourself to sink into the pose. Maybe take another deep breath. Allow yourself maybe to go deeper into the pose. And then we're going to work our way back up to centre. But we're going to take one of the more yang of the yin poses, but still a favourite. I think they're all favourites. And coming to that dragon, lots and lots of variations you can take here. We can pad the knee. We can use 2 blocks for the arms, the hands even. We can bring the foot out to the side, keep fairly high. We can roll over onto the edge of that foot, or we can come down to 4 arms. So you've got lots of choices and it really depends on how you're feeling. And today I think I want to keep my knee fairly in, but I'm going to give some heat to this. Even in yin we can, just gently by lifting my knee. And use that cooling breath, use the gentle inhale and exhale. Remember, you can keep the knee on the mat, you can put bolsters in front of the knee. You can keep the pose high. But with the heat of the pose, we're not going to hold it quite as long. So we draw the knees back together and sink into child pose, just allowing softness into the arms, or even sweeping the arms behind you and coming into a traditional child's pose. Before rising up and adjusting on the other side. Cushioning knees, using props, bringing height if you need with blocks or your hands. Maybe even taking a little stretch and bringing the knee off the mat. Going deeper into the pose if you wish. And just use that breath as that barometer. So if you are starting to hold the breath, then just think, maybe too much of an edge. And gently soften the pose. Before we draw ourselves back to child's pose at the back of the mat. Keeping arms soft. Taking a big inhale and exhale. And then we're going to slide all the way forwards. Use this as a moment to stretch the back. You might even wish to take a little cat-cow here. Just taking a moment, easing the body. One of the things that's really important in our classes is to create the movement that suits you. Yes, we can make the traditional shapes, but we can also move in slightly different ways. And then eventually arriving in that Egyptian lion. And again, use props. So cushion can come under between the chest and the elbows. You might even wish to rest the head on a block. Moving the arms slightly away from you if it's too much on the lower back. Activating the pose, press into the hands, the fronts of the feet, the pelvis. And remember that breath. May even be comfy with the gaze forwards. If you wish to extend the pose, you can take the hands gently out to the corners of the mat. Index finger spirals to the edge and then push into a little seal, keeping a very soft bend in the elbows. We're pushing that mat away from us. And then drawing ourselves all the way back down to the mat, moving any props that you have, allowing yourself to come flat on the mat, resting the hands together, the forearms together, and just gently allowing the spine to come back to that neutral state and settle. slowly move back up to seated, using a cushion or a blanket just to bring the pelvis up. I'm going to come into half butterfly. So half butterfly is good for the whole spine. It can aggravate sciatica as well, so just be mindful when you roll. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring the foot gently in and extend the leg long. Now, you can do all sorts. You can keep a little bit of a bend by keeping blocks just gently under the knee, which is quite a nice thing to do, or you can stretch the leg. Wherever we are, we've also got options. So we can turn and we can gently roll forward. Again, watch that lower back. And we can draw a little length into this pose. Or if it's just simply not for you, then come to the traditional butterfly and take a moment there. And then bring your stretch out low to the front. Hands extend, stretching through the upper back. Walking the hands towards you. And coming back up to seated. And pausing. And just be aware of those sensations in the body. And then move. So we bring the opposite foot in. Stretching the leg long. Again, you can bend that leg if you wish. And just draw your knee and the head down so you can change this pose too. Or work towards just gently rounding the spine towards the leg. Allowing the breath to let you deeper into the pose if you wish. Walking the hands back up and then walk the hands out to the center. And just let you support your body with the hands just outstretched. You can pull the toes towards you if you wish, or just allow them to lengthen. Walking the hands back, we're going to come full circle back to puppy pose, melting heart pose. Using a cushion if you wish, or just even a blanket for the forehead on the mat. Walking the knees so the hips are stacked underneath the knees, underneath the hips. Protecting the shoulder if you wish, by just bringing one hand across the mat and letting one hand extend. And just take a shorter time here, just stretching through. walk the hands towards us to the back of the mat. Sweep the feet, and we're going to come all the way down to the mat. Back to that constructive rest pose. And then to reclined butterfly. Remember, you can just stack the blocks just gently underneath the thighs if that helps you recline butterfly. And you find that maybe the hips are pinching a little and you just want to keep a little bit of support just under those thighs, which helps then the hips, especially if you've got kind of just a little bit sticky kind of hip flexors. And take a moment here. Just allowing the spine to settle along the mat. And then very gently, we're going to move to a Shavasana. So if you have a blanket, socks, we are getting, I'm afraid, to woolly jumpers in the evenings anyway. Then just make yourself comfy. And I'll guide you through a Shavasana. Allowing yourself to settle. Allowing the legs to stretch out long. The heels not quite touching. And the feet just gently turning outwards. Tuck the shoulder blades. Settle the arms towards the body. And then allow yourself to feel heavy. And start to feel where the body is connecting with the mat. The heels. Allowing the heels to feel heavy, melting. The muscles all relaxing. The back of the legs. And just as we said at the beginning of the practice, if you feel any tension, allow that breath to move towards that area of tension. Pushing the exhale to wherever that feeling is. Allowing the arms to be supported, the back of the head, and then softening the crown, softening the eyes. And softening the jaw. We often keep a lot of tension in our face. And then bring that awareness to the breath and allow the breath to be very relaxed, just to rise and fall, just in your own time and space. And that might be a light, relaxed breath, or you might feel that you want to connect a little more with it. Making that choice how you feel. Awareness of where the breath starts and ends. And then very gently you're going to start to move the hands, start to move the toes. Maybe bring the hands into the palms and open the fingers again. And then carefully start to make your way back up to seated, just by rolling onto your side, bringing yourself back to that seated meditation pose, easy pose.